Right now, America is trying to change the rules in the gold and cryptocurrency markets. Remember how much debt they have: $35 trillion. Essentially, these are two alternative segments to the global currency market. Washington's actions in this direction clearly demonstrate one of America's main objectives. They are very eager to solve the problem of declining trust in the dollar. The US, just as it did in the 1930s and 1970s, will solve its financial problems at the expense of the entire world, driving everyone where? Into the cryptocurrency cloud. Over time, when part of the US national debt is placed in stablecoins, the US will devalue that debt. Once again, in simple terms, right now they have a $35 trillion currency debt. They move it into crypto, into the cloud, devalue it, and start from scratch.
The United States government owes $37 trillion, an ocean of debt deeper than anything any nation has ever drowned in. More debt than the entire world created in a single year just 2 decades ago. And here's the part no one dares say out loud. They're not planning to repay it. They're planning to obliterate it. Not by default, not through brutal cutbacks, not by squeezing taxpayers dry, by devaluation. A slow, deliberate bleed out of the dollar's strength. An invisible heist against anyone holding American currency. And the tool they're using is something most people believe sits outside government influence: crypto and gold. You're watching the US quietly engineer the most advanced debt erasure scheme in modern history. They're building a shadow financial system, stockpiling Bitcoin and gold like ammunition, preparing to catapult their value far beyond today's prices, and using that engineered surge to balance a debt that cannot be paid in any rational universe. But here's the part that should keep you awake at night. When gold and crypto are forced upward, the dollar is forced downward. Every dollar you hold is quietly hollowed out. Your bonds rot, your savings vanish in real terms. You're being plundered, legally, silently, completely. And most people won't realize it until the trap has already closed. In this video, I'm going to expose exactly how the mechanism works. Not theories, not rumors. The actual machinery of debt destruction through strategic reserve manipulation. I'll show you this isn't new. It has happened multiple times. I'll show you what the US government is already doing, the orders they've signed, the reserves they're quietly expanding, the gold they're hoarding, and the timeline they're following when this detonates, how fast it spreads, and what you need to do before the window closes. Because this isn't a distant threat. It's unfolding now. The gears are already turning. And once this event hits critical mass, nothing returns to the way it was.
It's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly.
Let's start with a truth almost nobody grasps. Government debt doesn't behave like your debt. When you owe money, you must pay it with real effort, work more hours, sell what you own, cut your spending to the bone. But governments wield a weapon you don't. They own the currency. And whoever controls the currency controls reality. They can redefine what a dollar means. They can reprice the assets they hold. They can vaporize debt without ever touching it. This is called a monetary reset. And it's a pattern woven through history. Watch how it played out before. In 1933, America was suffocating under the weight of World War I debt and Great Depression collapse. The debt to GDP ratio shot upward. The system was cracking. Deflation was killing everything. So, Roosevelt did the unthinkable. He revalued gold, not slightly, catastrophically. Overnight. At the time, gold was $20.67 per ounce. That had been the anchor price for half a century. For more than 50 years, a dollar was defined as a sliver of gold. It was literal, physical, real. But the government was bankrupt. They couldn't sustain their debts with that gold price. So, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102. He made private gold ownership illegal. You were forced to surrender your gold. They paid you $20.67 per ounce, the official price. Americans complied. They handed over their real wealth. Then came the dagger. Roosevelt revalued gold to $35, a 69% jump, overnight. And look what that did. Most of the nation's gold now belonged to the government. they'd just seized it. At $20.67, their hoard was worth $4 billion. At $35, suddenly $6.8 billion. They created $2.8 billion out of thin air by altering a number. And because debt was denominated in dollars now weaker relative to gold, the real burden of the debt collapsed. 40% debt to GDP became 25% in just a few years. They erased the weight without repaying a cent. And citizens holding dollars, they lost almost half their purchasing power, slowly, quietly, through engineered inflation. They watched the gold they surrendered skyrocket, but they were banned from buying it back. The government destroyed their savings to rescue itself. This isn't folklore, this is the model, and it's being deployed again, right now. Today, the US owes $37 trillion. Debt to GDP sits at 132%, the highest in generations. Interest payments alone are $1.2 trillion, more than the military, more than Medicare, more than anything except Social Security. And with high rates, it only grows. At 5% interest, payments reach $1.8 trillion within 2 years. That's 6% of GDP. Just interest, no principal. This is mathematically impossible to sustain. And every institution knows it. The CBO knows it. Treasury knows it. The Federal Reserve knows it. They've run the simulations. None of them end with repayment. You can't tax your way out. You can't grow your way out. You can't cut your way out. There is only one exit: devaluation. But printing money openly exposes the crime. Inflation explodes. Trust collapses. The dollar cracks. They need a cleaner weapon, a hidden one, a strategy that looks like innovation, not theft. Enter Bitcoin and gold. Let me show you the moves they've already made. In January 2025, President Trump signed an order creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve, a digital equivalent of the oil reserves, only far more powerful. The stated goal? Keep America competitive, protect innovation, secure the future. The real purpose? Accumulate an asset they can revalue. The US already holds 210,000 Bitcoin from seizures, worth around $21 billion. Not enough to matter. But the new policy aims for 1 million coins. They'd never buy that openly. Prices would explode. Instead, they're pulling it through seizures, penalties, settlement deals, and possibly state-backed mining. Quiet accumulation, hidden reserves, the same pattern as 1933. Because the goal isn't to gather Bitcoin at a high price. It's to gather it before they raise the price. Here's the revaluation model. Say Bitcoin sits around $100,000. They gradually collect 1 million coins. Cost? Around $120 billion total. Then, once the reserves are full, they make the announcement. America now holds 1 million Bitcoin. And for strategic balance sheet purposes, it's valued at $1 million per coin, not the market price. A new price, a declared price, just like gold in 1934. Suddenly, those coins become a $1 trillion asset. The government manufactures $880 billion in value overnight. And because the US becomes the largest holder of Bitcoin, the market follows the declaration. Bitcoin climbs toward $1 million in waves. Meanwhile, the dollar collapses against it. Because when Bitcoin explodes upward, the dollar implodes downward. Now, gold. The US holds 8,133 tons, 261 million ounces, worth hundreds of billions at today's prices. But on the books, the government values that gold at $42.22 per ounce, a price from 1973, deliberately outdated. Why? To leave room for a massive revaluation. When they eventually market to $20,000 an ounce, those reserves jump from $11 billion to over $5 trillion. Created from nothing, yet backed by gold they've held for decades. Combine that with Bitcoin revaluation, and suddenly they have $6 trillion in new balance sheet strength. Enough to mask a large portion of the debt. Enough to pretend the ship is stable. If the world's biggest gold holder declares gold is worth $20,000 and locks that price in with policy, the entire financial system has no choice but to kneel. Gold won't jump there overnight. It climbs like a pressure gauge rising toward red. $5,000, $8,000, $12,000, tightening the noose year after year. And as gold claws its way to $20,000 and Bitcoin surges toward $1 million, the dollar doesn't dip, it bleeds out. Because if gold was $2,800 and now stands at $20,000, the dollar just lost 85% of its strength. If Bitcoin was $100,000 and now hits $1 million, the dollar just lost 90%. But the average person doesn't think in gold or Bitcoin, they think in groceries, rent, fuel, and those prices are about to erupt. Because when the dollar loses 85 to 90% of its power against hard assets, it loses 50 to 70% against everything else. Food, energy, housing, all of it. Imagine this in real life. You think $100,000 in your savings makes you secure, not rich, but safe. Then the government revalues gold to $20,000 and Bitcoin to $1 million. Inflation hits 20% a year, not fake CPI numbers. Real inflation, the kind that doubles food prices, doubles fuel, and pushes rent up 60%. Your $100,000 now buys what $35,000 used to. You didn't lose money. Your money lost you. But the government's debt? Still $37 trillion on paper. Yet now, only worth $13 trillion in real terms. They erased $24 trillion of their burden, not through payment, through destruction. They siphoned that value from every saver, every worker, every retiree. That's the trick. They advertise stability while engineering collapse. And internationally, BRICS nations have been preparing. They're hoarding gold, thousands of tons. They're building an alternative monetary system. So, when the US revalues gold, the world follows. Not formally, inevitably. Everyone's reserves explode in value. Everyone's debts get wiped. It becomes a global reset, driven not by cooperation, but by desperation. So, if entire nations are gearing up for this, you can't afford to shrug it off. Take it seriously, because whatever's coming is already unfolding in the shadows. Here is the timeline. 2025, accumulation. The US quietly gathers Bitcoin, builds narrative for gold. 2026, crisis. Debt ceilings, bond panic, political brinkmanship. Crisis becomes the excuse for extraordinary measures. 2027, revaluation. Bitcoin valued at $1 million, gold at $20,000. Dollar implodes. Inflation detonates into 30 to 50%. Food triples, energy quadruples, housing doubles in price but collapses in affordability. Debt shrinks, middle class evaporates. Winners? The US government, politicians, central banks, early Bitcoin and gold holders, nations with reserves, the wealthy with assets, losers, savers, retirees, bondholders, pension funds, workers, renters, small businesses, the American dream. And none of this is unprecedented. Weimar Germany, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, same script, different century, currency collapse masquerading as policy. Central banks know. They've been buying record amounts of gold, BRICS building alternatives, China accumulating Bitcoin in the shadows. Everyone who knows what's coming is preparing. This isn't conspiracy. It's arithmetic. It's policy. It's happening in plain sight. And unless you act before the revaluation hits, you're the collateral damage, not by accident, but by design.